Hi, this is Dave Center with Bold Leading, and I want to just congratulate you on joining us for our first video of this series, How to Make Fundraising Simple, or Fundraising Made Simple. There are four main things that you want to do when we talk about making things simple. You have to have a collection of names. So whether you gather names or you have some already, we'll give you some ideas and tips how to manage that, how to get more, whether it's through events, through direct mail, or doing it on digital, online, those sorts of things. We have to have a really compelling story. We'll talk about some of the elements of storytelling. And then we also want to, we obviously need the dollars. And it's a way that it's not just the dollars, but it's how donors are able to vote and to share feedback with us by them, how they give, when they give, how much they give. And so paying attention to how they interact with us through dollars, and obviously other things too, whether they volunteer or engage with us in other ways is important as well. And then the last thing we always want to take into consideration is giving a smile. The idea that the person on the other end of that gift is a person. We want to take care of them, and we want to be thinking about their philanthropic journey. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today and give you an overview of our series. And we'll be, as we go through each of the videos, we'll actually go deeper into each one of these sections. So just as a quick introduction, this is Dave Center from Bold Leading, and I have over almost 20 years, over 15, almost 20 years of fundraising experience for nonprofits. And it's been an interesting journey for me. When I first started as an executive director, I didn't know how to fundraise or market or do any sort of development work, and had to sort of learn through some difficult trials and tribulations. But in the midst of all that, I actually had a mentor, a guy named Jim Holman, that really helped me out. And especially over the last 5 to 10 years of my career, at the last nonprofit I was at, he really helped me figure out that fundraising or development work is more than just getting dollars. It's about meeting people, becoming friends with them, and at times encouraging and blessing them. Hopefully a lot. Actually, I've maintained friendships with people that have been donors of my last organization for over a decade, and seeing them give lots of dollars, but also build a friendship with me. I actually performed or officiated a ceremony or a wedding ceremony for one of our donors. So you just never can be surprised when you do this well of the outcomes of fundraising. We would love for you to connect with us online on our website, boldleading.com, or through any of our social profiles, and you can get those links on our website, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're trying to get that information out where you live, and wherever you're at on social, make sure you connect with us and comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Maybe there's some things that we haven't thought of, and I know there is. We're only able to give a little bit of all the things that are possible to say about fundraising, and we know many of you have lots of experience as well. We'd love to learn from you as we go. So one of the things that I'm really committed to is the idea that every donor or person is on a philanthropic journey, and we want to provide the least amount of resistance for that donor's generosity. So we want to make things as convenient as possible to help them connect with their desire to make a change, to make an impact in the world. And by when we do that, we want to have the audacity to ask them to give. We want to be authentic in our messaging, but we also at some point need to ask. And so we want to have the audacity to ask for them to give. And with that in mind, we want to give some really easy ways for them to give. So we want things to be compelling, clear, and convenient. As we get into the video series, we'll go into some examples of how to do that. And the technology, especially digitally, is changing a lot. And so we want to be always learners of what's coming up next, ways that people can give. And so we do as much as we can at Bold Leading to do the research, to work with vendors and partners to find out what are the best ways, the most current ways that they're seeing for nonprofits to connect with donors. And then we're here to share that with you. So when we talk about storytelling, we want to make sure that it's compelling. And so we do want to have, as often as you can, to have custom stories that are stories about your organization, the people that you're serving, or the cause that you're advocating for. So you want to make it authentic. And so you want to have your own photos of people that you're helping, or policy changes that you're trying to make, the effects of that, whatever it may be. And not only talk about the transformation, but also sometimes you need to talk about, and this needs to be handled delicately, but what happens if people don't give? What happens if the change doesn't happen for people? What will they suffer, or what will be the pain points? And so we want to talk about the storytelling. We have to have a nice balance between the darkness of what we're trying to fix and also the light and brightness of it being fixed. So we also kind of want to be in that gray, I guess, of here's the light, but if you don't give, here's what sort of that darkness could be. So we want to make sure that we connect people with our story and allow them to give in a convenient way. And the most important gift that you can get is actually the second one. Obviously, the first gift is extremely important, but getting somebody to give a second time is really important because it validates their first gift. It says to themselves really that the first gift, or the first investment I've given, is important and it was worthwhile. And there's a lot of things that happen between that first and second gift, so we want to do that very well. And when we talk about that, we want to make sure that we keep it prompt, that we keep how we give or give a thank you to them. It's got to be along the same channel, hopefully, and then also maybe another channel to kind of reinforce it. So if they give digitally, maybe we send a thank you in the mail or a handwritten note. And if they give through the direct mail, maybe we give them an opportunity to go to our website and get a thank you there, or to find out more information about what we're doing. We want to make sure it's personalized, so we use their name. And we just wrote a blog post of how to fire your friends list. And in there we talk about, we never want to say dear friend or dear friends when we can help it. Sometimes you can't, for whatever reason. Somebody may not give their name when they give, but if you can, get a first name. This happens a lot with churches or organizations where there's not a contact name, but a business name. And you want to make sure it's prompt, and we'll give you some examples of that. And then if we can, we want to be as creative as possible in the way that we say thank you to our donors. And the second most important gift, and this is a gift that we give to our donors, is convenience. We want to make sure that it's easy for them to be generous. And we'll talk about that more in depth as we get into the video series. But when you're thinking about print, digital, social, mobile, and trying to make all that personalized, we want to make sure that we keep our story for the medium, for the channel. So the way you might post a story on Facebook versus Instagram might be a little bit different. You might be in direct mail. It can all be very similar in the same theme and messaging, the same story, but we might tell it a little bit differently because we have different mediums, and each of those mediums have different ways to communicate that are more compelling and interesting because of the nature of the channel. So we want to be aware of that as much as possible. And there are different ways that you can get names, so we want to make sure it's personalized to individuals out there. So you might get names, if you don't already have them, from gatherings or events. You might actually have a gala would be on one extreme, where you have new people. I know we had 800 people on a regular basis at our annual sort of banquet or gala, and usually about a third of those, or 250 of those people, would be new to the organization, invited by other people, and it's a great way to get those names. On the other side of it, you might have a board member that invites a friend, and you have coffee or breakfast or go out for lunch, and you might get one name through that interaction. So that's on the other extreme, and there's lots of different gatherings in between that, and each one of those has different things that you need to think about. And as we get into the video series, we'll talk specifically about those gatherings and some tips on how to handle each of those types of gatherings. You might get a referral, as we mentioned, through a board member, another staff member, or volunteer. And then you might actually pay for a list through getting actually a mailing list. That's sort of the most common. It can be very effective. You might do it through social Facebook ads and other ways along that line, where you're not necessarily paying for the name, but you're paying for the ads to get in front of people that are to a certain demographic and trying to get them to give that first gift. You can buy emails. That's kind of buyers beware. It's not usually recommended, but there may be opportunities that you can do that as well. And not just, buying email from people you don't know, but it might be through a chamber list where you're able to get onto their email platform, or you might connect with a business and they may have an email platform for allow you to get information out, or you may send an email out to churches asking them to put you in their bulletin or put information out, and you have ads to get to those emails as well. So there's lots of different ways that you can connect with specific people. And then don't rule out pavement and phone. And maybe there's people that you got a referral and you need to call them up, or just going around your neighborhood and just introducing yourself with a business card or maybe a recent newsletter or appeal letter, and talking about your organization. So I did that especially the first 4 or 5 years. I traveled a 100-mile radius around our organization, kind of trying to spread the word. And then we talk about story. We're just going to give a really brief talk about it during this particular introduction, and we'll get into more about how to craft the story. But really, there's kind of 4 things that you need to think about, and you can Google, storytelling, and go on YouTube and get tips on storytelling. I know there's a nonprofit storytelling conference, and there's lots of other consultants that talk about very in detail. I recommend that you look at all of those, but there's usually a premise or a conflict, something that is happening that you're trying to fix, a problem that you're trying to fix. And then there's the characters, the people that are involved, the people that are affected, whether that's animals, it could be a policy change, it could be a certain demographic that it's affecting these people. And then there's help, then there's sort of the rainbow effect of there's this promise. And then there should be some sort of a conclusion, a postlude that says, because you helped, this is what happened. And if you're making an ask, it may also mean that you do the opposite, say that if you don't help, this is what could happen. Yeah. So when we talk about story, it's really important for us to think about these different elements, that there is a sort of a premise, a foreshadowing of the issues at hand, and then it kind of grows and grows and grows. There's a climax, and there's actually studies by neuroscientists that there's a big payoff emotionally in our brains, that even thinking about giving can have an emotional payoff. And so as we write letters or do different things, we'll make sure that it's compelling as possible for our donors. We want to use those, especially letters or asking them to give. We want to talk about you are making the difference, or you can make the difference. And there's sort of 4 types of buckets or types of gifts. And this is, donors can float amongst these gifts depending on how they're asked, the circumstances. And so we talk about a portfolio of giving. But basically, smaller gifts usually are more impulse. So I think of as you're going through a grocery store and you have gum and candy and all these very low value items, and they're meant to kind of grab your attention and fulfill a need in that moment. And small gifts can, we're talking $30, $50 or below, depending on your organization size and donor size. So all of that, but usually a smaller gift is an impulse gift. People are not thinking too much about it. A medium-sized gift might be $100 to $1,000, where it's going to affect somebody's income, that they have to really think about this, that this is going to maybe come out of a budget. They have a monthly budget or annual budget on what they give, and it'll affect that. And then large and extra large gifts could be $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, $1 million. And this is where you're actually moving assets, that donors are actually making a significant choice on making a lifetime gift. And so we want to be clear that there's these different buckets, and how you ask for these different kinds of gifts. They have different methods and mediums that you use and when you can do it. And as we get further into the video series, we'll be talking more in depth in the types of gifts and how to solicit for them. And then obviously the big thing is to give a smile. We want donors to experience our organization in a very positive light, knowing that we're making a difference in the lives of others. And we do that often by how we treat the donor. Sometimes they may not be able to go to us if we go to Africa or Mexico, or we're helping adopt a dog, and maybe they can't do that, or helping the homeless. But they're investing in us to make a change that they can't do. And the only way they know that we're doing it well sometimes is not just testimonials, but from people, recipients, but it also can be the way that we treat them as a donor. So if we treat them well and we're connecting with them, then they make hopefully the right assumption that we're also doing the same way with our cause. And so we want to give a smile. And some easy ways to do that is to thank them, to send a receipt and a thank you within 48 hours. A donor shouldn't get their money taken out of their bank account and not get a thank you right away. Whether it's through digitally, where we automatically give a thank you because they give through credit card, or if they send it in the mail, that right away we're returning that back. We'd hate for them to get a check state or a balance statement from their bank and they gave to us, but it's a month later or 2 months later or a few weeks later that we've actually sent a thank you and receipt. We're going to be very prompt with that, and that'll actually help us in some other ways that we'll discuss as we move into that section of this video series. And then if you can, if they're a new donor, send some sort of a welcome kit and check out our YouTube channel. We have a whole series on how to welcome new donors to your organizations. I think 7 or 8 videos. So we won't go into all the details in this particular one, but we'd love for you to check that out. And then listen to your donors and then thank them. And then if it's appropriate, ask them to give again. Many of your donors love the idea that they've made an impact, and give them another opportunity. It just fills up that philanthropic journey again. It's a release for their generosity, so don't be afraid to ask. Thanks again for joining us for this video series on Fundraising Made Simple. And this is our first video and our overview video. And we hope that you connect with us online and at boldleading.com and other social channels. Until next time, be blessed and be bold.